Years ago, when my wife couldn't sleep, she'd ask me to tell her about the moon and the tides. Surefire, put her to sleep right away. Another effective topic was the motions of the Earth in space. That'll do it. So I'm not going to go into that. I don't want to put you all to sleep. Suffice it to say that because the Earth tilts on its axis, the amount of sunlight we get changes through the year. If it didn't, we wouldn't have seasons. Our weather would always be the same. There'd be nothing to mark the year. We wouldn't even know we'd gone around the sun. We'd have days, but no years. How would we measure time? Would we do it by moons? I figure I'm about 900 moons old. I don't think that's a very effective way of measuring time. But fortunately for us, the Earth does tilt, and there's a point in our orbit where we are lined up. We are getting exactly 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness. And that point comes tomorrow afternoon at 2:42 p.m. That's the vernal equinox, the spring equinox. Days are exactly equal. So spring is here, and not just on the calendar. This time I think it's really here. For millennia, we have marked these seasonal changes and celebrated them. Winter solstice when the days are shortest, summer solstice when they're longest, and midway between the spring and autumn equinoxes when days and nights are equal. Any wonder that we celebrate those dates? You think it's just coincidence that Christmas and Easter fall just about on those dates? For many societies, midsummer is marked with festivals, and harvest festivals mark the end of the growing season. We lived in Sweden for a year, and on the first warm, sunny day of spring, all over town you could see people backed up against south-facing walls, soaking in the sunlight. And spring is a showcase for so many wonderful changes, although it's not always a steady progress. Think of our recent period of warm weather, then a bout of snow, frigid temperatures, then warm, clear days, followed by a week of rain, then dry. And the last couple of days have been absolutely glorious. We put our heavy coats in the back of the closet. Overcast skies give way to fluffy cumulus clouds and then bright, clear skies. Plants begin to flourish. Flowers pop up beneath the leafless trees before the leaves come out and shade the ground. Bulbs sprout, seeds begin to grow with the new warmth. Buds on trees unfurl their leaves. The forsythia seems to explode all over town all at once. Yesterday morning, as I was thinking about these comments, I looked out the window at the flowering cherry trees outside my house, and I could almost visibly see the buds swelling. I half expected this morning that when I looked out, they would have been opened up. It was overcast, they weren't, but I could see the pink emerging, and somebody got some sunny. It's no wonder we celebrate the renewal of life at this time of year. Our world is being transformed in wondrous ways. No wonder I love spring.
If I don't know you, my name is Kate McGraw. I am one of the affiliated community ministers for this church. I work full-time as a chaplain in a program that serves frail elders and their families. And I get to lead some of the other chaplains as well. So what does that mean to serve frail elders and their families? What do I actually do all day long when I'm with folks? The main thing, the most important thing I do is I get to listen. I get to be with people in all different kinds of situations. Sometimes they're joyful, sometimes they're difficult. Sometimes it's just a casual moment where we say hello, but it slowly builds relationship, right? We've all experienced that. Maybe even coming to church, you don't have deep conversations with people every time, but you develop relationships slowly, and we get to do that. I think of those times, every single one of them, as holy encounters, where I get to be a little piece of a person's story and we get to share our hearts together. I just love that piece of what I get to do. I get to listen too for sort of what's the deeper need underneath the need that's being voiced. If someone's talking about, let me think about an example. If someone's talking about wanting a particular assistive device, maybe they need a walker. Richard knows about this. Maybe they need a particular kind of walker because they want to be able to get around better. Our team talks about what's recommended and what the person wants, and what I'm listening for when I hear that conversation and when I talk to the person, what I'm listening for is what's important to them. Our other team members do that too. I'm not the only one. But the piece that I love about what I get to do is listening kind of below the request or behind the request. Okay, this person wants a particular walker, but what do they want it for? Well, they want it so they can go out and go shopping with their granddaughter. That's the thing that's like driving it. That's the thing that's most important. That's another little piece of that person's heart, that person sharing their heart. Sometimes I get to talk to people about religious or spiritual questions, concerns, things that are going on. You know, we all go through life with, I feel like, some basic human questions, right? And when a person gets to be old enough to be served by the program that I work for, and I'm now old enough to be served by the program I work for, you definitely have questions. You've definitely been through some stuff, right? So those questions come up from time to time. And like lately, because I'm shifting my role into doing some leadership and still some direct service, most of the people that I get to do direct service with have big questions because they're at the end of their lives. So they're thinking about, you know, what has been important in my life? What have I done or have I not done? Who do I still need to talk to? Who do I need to heal relationship with? What am I happy about? What's been really meaningful to me in my life? This last week, I was sitting with a family as their person was getting really close to the end of life. He wasn't able to talk anymore, and the family was sharing about him. And they were, I mean, it's a piece of grief work, right? Telling stories about a person, but they were telling stories about what they remember and how this person has been active in their lives. Sometimes the stories are funny, sometimes the stories are sad, but again, there's that piece of sort of listening between the lines to get to what's really most central. And what's most central is different, right, for everybody. Because we all interpret those questions differently, we all answer them differently. Those questions about what's the thing I'm most proud of in my life? If you take a moment right now to think about what's the thing I'm most proud of in my life? I bet we all have different answers to that question. What's the thing I feel like I still need to do? We all have different answers to that as well. And as we sort of move into asking questions and into thinking about living into the answers, we're at a cusp, right? We're at a turning point. Just like Elliot talked about with the turning point of the seasons. We're moving from winter into spring. It feels like a logical progression because winter is usually followed by spring, right? But they sort of have really different connotations. They mean different things if we think about what winter is like. We think about darkness and settling in, and we think about what spring is like. We think about opening up. We think about, I don't know what this flower is, but it has a great scent. We think about smells and sights that are opening up and becoming more free. We also think about, if, at least in Oregon, around this time, one of the things I love about this time of year is that it's stormy. There's like moments where you might have bright sunshine and then big dark clouds roll in and then the rain comes down and maybe the hail and the thunder and the lightning. Times of change can be stormy like that. Turnings, cusps, can be stormy like that. And maybe these juxtapositions, these times in life where we're thinking about feeling young on the inside, but our bodies getting older. Or we're thinking about, what have I done that's good in my life, and what do I need a second chance about? Or we're thinking about someone we love who we know is a good person, but they've done something that hurt us. All of those can be really stormy times, right? Really times where there might be a sense of even trauma that surrounds that stuff. Those cusp times, right? Those times where things can be one thing or the other. Recently, I ran across the work of a new book by Father Greg Boyle. I don't know if folks are familiar with his work, but he is in Southern California, and he works with people he calls homeboys and homegirls. They're former gang members. And there are people who definitely need a second chance. Now, in my work, I actually got introduced to this book through work, but in my work, the organization, I work for Providence, so it's Catholic healthcare, so there's talk about God in the work, right? And especially as a chaplain, there's space to talk about what's beyond us, what connects us and what's beyond us. And talk about God as a healing force, and especially the love of God as a healing force. I think we, as UUs, are maybe more comfortable, kind of in a broad general way, talking about that healing love that connects us all. We don't all use the word God for it, right? But that healing love, that healing force, and Father Boyle talks about that. He talks about the power, his new book is called The Whole Language, The Extravagant Power of Tenderness. And his story about how he got to the title, The Whole Language, is one that I really love. He talks about he's on the phone with a young man who's in prison, and the young man is telling him about his cellmate whose family speaks a different language than the young man that Father Boyle's talking to. It's Russian, I think. And he talks about hearing his cellmate talk to the cellmate's mom. Every single week they have these conversations, and they're very clearly very loving, supportive conversations, and they happen in Russian. And the guy that's talking to Father Boyle says, man, he speaks the whole language. He speaks that whole language. He speaks Russian right to his mom, and it's the whole language. And Father Boyle makes this step, that's this connection between these loving conversations and the whole language of love, right? That love is, in fact, the whole language, no matter what dialect we speak it in. And when I think about those cusp times, those difficult questions or the juxtapositions that are uncomfortable for us, I think about that whole language. I think about love as one of the things that helps us bridge, one of the things that helps us move through the difficult times and the kind of tricky, maybe even stormy spaces in our lives. Here's what Father Boyle says about the whole language. He says, we're on the lookout for a fuller expression and a wider frame within which to view things. Allow the extravagant tenderness of God to wash over us. Permit the lavishing of such love to surround and fill us. Then go into the world and speak the whole language. This is the fluency of the mystic, who chooses to live in the soul, inhabiting the tender fragrance of love. The longing of the mystic is to be at home with yourself and then put out the welcome mat so others find a home in you. We want to be all there, all surrounded in that love, in that transformative place. And if you think about moments when you've experienced that, you know that when we're grounded in love, when we're surrounded in the whole language, we know that that love flows through all. And we're able to move through difficult questions and apparent contradictions, weird juxtapositions. We're able to move through all of that and see the beauty that connects us. When we speak the whole language, there's room for all of it. There's room for all that makes us, room for all of us. So may we all move into that space of the whole language. May it be so, and amen.